Hello and welcome, I'm Oles Gerjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. Today we're talking about a Ukrainian movie titled Ilovaisk 2014 Donbas Battalion. It is based on events in eastern Ukraine 5 years ago, in particular the Battle of Ilovaisk, which became one of the most tragic pages of modern Ukrainian military history. In August 2014, the Ukrainian army and volunteer fighters were encircled by Russian troops. In the last week of that month, Russian President Vladimir Putin said a humanitarian, so to say, green corridor should be established to allow the surrounded soldiers leave. The Russian hybrid forces demanded the Ukrainians leave armored vehicles and ammunition behind. Once the soldiers began to retreat, the Kremlin-backed forces opened fire. Hundreds of Ukrainian defenders were killed. The movie depicts this very tragedy, and we want to discuss it with Istan Rozumny, filmmaker, screenwriter, and actor. Hello, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. It's good to have you in the studio, and it's good that the premiere of this movie, which is scheduled for today, August 29th, coincides with the Day of Remembrance of the Defenders of Ukraine. So basically, today we commemorate those who were killed throughout all these 5 years of war in eastern Ukraine. And the idea to depict this tragedy, in particular the Battle of Ilovaisk, as I mentioned in the introduction, is really great, but I think it took probably lots of efforts to implement because, I mean, there were hundreds of soldiers participating in the real events. Could you please tell us about this movie-making process?
Well, the process itself of making the film was very intense. There was about 65 shooting days, and mostly shot last summer and last fall, and there was a bit shot this spring. But it was pretty intense. There was actual soldiers, volunteers who were in the battle, who were fighting. There was artillery, there was ammunition, not live ammunition. So the conditions and the atmosphere was very similar to what it was like to actually be in a war, in an attack. So it was very draining emotionally as an actor, especially someone who hasn't been in an army before. So it was emotionally draining as well as physically. I think the emotional part of it was more draining than the physical, because you're actually reliving real events and trying to give honor to the memory of the soldiers who were fallen.
Plus, you participate in the shootings together with the soldiers who actually went through that hell and who survived in the very end. Could you please share with us some stories? You said that it was emotionally draining, so I assume that probably soldiers were sharing a lot of things that were happening 5 years ago.
No, absolutely. I mean, they gave us inspiration. They gave us a setting. They explained how it was. My character, his name was Franco, diaspora Mark Poslavsky from New York. So he's an American, very similar to me. I'm a Canadian. He moved to Ukraine, had a business, and then he volunteered. And a lot of the volunteers, the real soldiers who were in the battle, were in the battalion. They were telling me about him personally, his characteristics as a soldier, as a person. So it helped me get into the role of Franco, and they were describing various scenes. Death scenes, how characters died, how difficult it was, and the fact that my character, Mr. Poslavsky, gave his life for Ukraine as a volunteer, it was a huge responsibility. But the guys, the soldiers, the volunteers, yeah, they shared. They helped us get into a headspace in how it was. For me, an amazing experience.
How did it feel to play in front of the fellow soldiers, the friends of your character?
Oh, that was really tough, actually, because you're playing somebody that lived, and they remember him. So I know when they looked at me and when they're talking to me, they were talking to him. And for example, yesterday at the premiere, the press screening, the executive producer referred to me not by my given real name, Istan, but Franco. So basically, you become that character. It was a big responsibility. So you have to be yourself, but you have to try to be the character that you're playing. So I don't know if I answered it clearly, but it was, yeah, it was a tough experience, a bit of a chaos in the head, but the guys were amazing. You know, the guys were amazing, and just huge respect to them for what they went through, and to relive it in a filming, a process that went for months. I mean, you could just see the heartbreak. You could see it in their eyes, the tears, the sorrow, the pain, like having to relive something that happened that was so tragic.
And that pain could even revive during those shootings too.
Oh yeah, I mean, who knows what happened in the evenings when they were alone? God knows. I mean, what they showed in front of us, the crew, that was one thing. But what they went through emotionally, I can't even imagine. I mean, have you lost a close friend that got killed beside you?
Luckily, I don't have this kind of experience.
Well, I haven't either. I mean, and not many people have. So how do you even begin to try to understand that?
That is true. But how many real military personnel participated in this movie?
Oh, these kind of specifics, I don't know. I mean, you're going to have to ask.
Approximately dozens or hundreds?
Yeah. Well, there were dozens of soldiers, volunteers. There were dozens. Veterans who actually were there and were acting in the movie. The technical personnel that were behind the scenes, for example, with the artillery, the guns. Again, there were dozens. Consultants, they came and they went. There was a lot of people. I mean, it was. We tried to recreate a real war, and the amazing thing is that you had people who were there, who lived through it. And I mean, if you're filming a scene, or if you're filming a reaction, I mean, these guys are there. They're saying, no, it didn't happen that way. It happened this way. So it was great.
Could you tell us more about the plot of this movie?
Well, the plot basically.
What kind of line did the screenwriter choose?
Well, it's based on the corridor. Obviously, that's what the film is about. But there are various one main character line, Bishut, the commander that survived. So basically, follow his story, as well as the story of the main separatist commander, with various interweaving. So it's a big story. It's a big event, brought down to a personal level through the eyes of a specific person. The dealings, what happened. I don't want to like do a spoiler here. I think that people should go see the movie. But
that is true. Well, we have a short clip from the official trailer. I think our audience is already curious to watch to have some short glimpse at it. So let's watch it.
А что случилось, Света?
Что случилось? Война, папа, случилась.
Зброю над головою! Пілот перший!
Ти один на Донецьк, прибережи!
От за це ти вже не переживай!
Медикам в депо!
Он мне нужен живой. Понял?
Нашелся твой Бишут.
You've got a big responsibility when you play somebody who went through a tragic event, especially if that person gave their life. So you try to live up to it, and it's very humbling, and you feel a big responsibility not only to the memory of the person that served or passed away, but to his friends who were with him. So it was a very deepening experience. It only helped. And I think I'm sure it happens in movies all over the world, war movies, where veterans come onto the set, onto the location as consultants. Obviously, they do. Perhaps this is a bit of a precedent where maybe in the future more directors and producers will engage actual servicemen to take part in the making of film. So it was positive. It was enlightening. It's an important movie, and I hope as many people as possible, not only Ukrainians, but people around the world will
have a chance to watch it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the premiere scheduled for today, and that press screenings and some maybe pre-premiere screenings have been held recently. Could you please share some kind of feedback? Because I assume there were some critics, some reporters, some families of those who were killed in Donbas, and maybe they shared something.
Yeah, you know, there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of tears in the eyes of the viewers, and you know, they come out of the theater and they walk up to you and they just they hug you, you know, and thank you, and it's amazing. I mean, it was a very unique experience. It was very humbling, and the reaction was positive. And I just hope more viewers can come out and feel the experience and learn a bit more about a very important historical event in Ukraine.
That is true.
See it a bit deeper. But it was nothing but positive.
Well, from what I know, this movie is going to be distributed around 170 cinemas throughout Ukraine. Mm-hmm. But do you know any ideas about maybe some possible distribution abroad?
Well, that's a question you should talk to the producer about. But I've heard that there are negotiations. Yeah, of course, they're negotiating right now with distributors in Western Europe, and so that's in the works. And I mean, it's a story that changed modern history, not just Ukrainian history, but the whole dynamic of the situation in Eastern Europe,
of course,
with Russia, and I mean, so a lot of countries are interested. I'm sure, to see this. And I just hope there's a wide distribution internationally, which will help open the eyes of the world.
Well, I hope that this movie will cross Ukraine's border and goes very far as it can reach. Thank you so much for being a guest today in our studio, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
That was Istan Rozumny, filmmaker, screenwriter, and actor. Thank you for watching Head to Head, and stay tuned for more.